Well, it looks like Nintendo isn't messing around, and wouldn't you know it, after Newswave goes up a couple hours later, here comes the Nintendo Direct announcement, which we had already kind of talked about that anyway. Of course, with Nate putting out there that there did appear to be some sort of Nintendo event that was going to happen this week, and he was kind of talking about the idea of there being a Direct maybe on Thursday. Well, go figure, Nate's current streak continues after calling the Switch 2 trailer that did shadow drop to now seeing this Direct happen, right up against the Switch 2 event, something that for a lot of people really doesn't make much sense. Well, I'm here to kind of talk about this a bit and even go over why it actually makes perfect sense, again, as weird as it sounds, to have two Nintendo Directs in the span of about 7 days, and again, leading into their next generation big introduction with that Switch 2, but we'll go over all that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Let's start over here with Nintendo's official announcement. This is on their account, of course, over on Twitter X, saying, tune in tomorrow, March 27th at 7 a.m. Pacific for a live stream Nintendo Direct featuring around 30 minutes of upcoming games for Nintendo Switch. There will be no updates about Nintendo Switch 2 during this presentation, so they're just getting that out of the way up front. Hey, this isn't going to be about the Switch 2, this is going to be about the current Switch, and this has confused many people. And it's good to keep the expectations where they are with Nintendo just putting this out there now, which is it a big deal? No, we're going to see the Switch 2 next week with all kinds of games, I'm sure, pricing. We'll have some launch titles set up, third party. It'll be a whole thing, sure. But in this case, why would Nintendo do a Direct 7 days before the Switch 2 presentation? I will say, I would have preferred it to be maybe last week, even the week before. I don't know if you had to smash it up against the Switch 2 presentation. They really could have even done it earlier in this week. It just seems like, okay, Thursday, and then next Wednesday or so, we'll have the big Switch 2 event. Now, it does make sense, I think, to have this a week before the Switch 2 event as opposed to a week after, because let's face it, once we get to the Switch 2 presentation and from then on, it's going to be all about this new platform from Nintendo, the games, the launch timing, the price points, and the features we assume that'll come with it, whether it's physically, maybe with the Joy-Cons or the system itself, or digitally and software side when it comes to maybe Nintendo Switch Online, maybe some GameCube being added or something. There's a lot of potential here when it comes to that side. But for this, 30 minutes of upcoming Switch games for the Nintendo Switch. And I think a lot of us are just thinking, okay, Switch 2, Switch 2, Switch 2. But Nintendo is certainly still thinking about the more than 155, we'll say, million people who have the current Switch. That's exactly what they're honing in on right now, because this is the time where you make a ton of money off of software. They've spent 8 years building up an install base that is still interested in their games for that platform. And yes, I know we look at the current Switch and we go, man, that thing needs help. It is struggling with a lot of the games that come out. You need Monolith Soft to show up with something like Xenoblade Chronicles X, which, yes, is a Wii U title, but they have to show up with that, the Definitive Edition, to really show once again what the Switch is kind of capable of there. But that's not going to be the norm for even first parties as well as third parties. But Nintendo still wants to put games out there that they can make heavy profit on. So when you think about the remasters that people have been mentioning for this entire generation through different rumors, like the Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Planet Robobot from the 3DS, that's already been mentioned. It would make sense here, but it's Nintendo. Who knows? Maybe they save that for a random Twitter drop next month for some weird reason. They've done that before, sure. But I think this is going to also be a place for a lot of third parties to show up and take advantage of that install base as well. So Nintendo first party with their partners, one last real big, although I say one last big Direct, would it be weird for Nintendo to have another Switch 1 focused Direct after the Switch 2 is shown? I guess it would, since you can just have a Nintendo Direct and say, hey, we'll talk about Switch and Switch 2, or really, if you show anything that also has the Switch 1 logo with the Switch 2, it won't be a big deal because they're backwards compatible on the Switch. We'll see how Nintendo handles that after we get beyond the launch of the Switch 2. But here, I think the big headliner, personally, is going to be Metroid Prime 4. It's already been thrown around that it won't be at the Switch 2 event, and it would make sense now seeing this because it's going to be at this event. And we do need a release date for it. We need more information around just how the game plays, any little interesting wrinkles or gameplay elements that they have to kind of set it apart from some of the previous ones. Maybe the potential for it to have additional features when you use it with the Switch 2. Although they say, hey, there's not going to be any Switch 2 stuff here. Maybe that's something they handle in like a separate like press release or post after we have more information about the Switch 2 or even after launch. So in a way, you can kind of tune into this and go, okay, I'm going to see stuff from my current system. This will line us up until the Switch 2 comes out and maybe even beyond. That'll be something that's kind of interesting to keep an eye on here because this is like the first time, I think, since the Switch came out that Nintendo has not had anything dated in front of them. Like, they have nothing. They have games that have been at least announced, Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon Legends ZA. Neither of those are dated, though. So since Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition came out, they've actually had a pretty wide open lane when it comes to releases to just start dropping stuff in. And I think that's what they're going to do here. We'll see stuff that's ready for launch probably right away. There'll probably be at least one shadow drop. There should be stuff then set up for April, May, and maybe June, which will be kind of interesting to see if they maybe place something right around the launch of the Switch 2 that's specifically for the current Switch. I mean, I'm fully expecting there to be a fairly lengthy, I'll say, cross-gen period. And by lengthy for Nintendo, I mean like a year and a half maybe, where they're still announcing Switch 1 games with the Switch 2 on the market. This is a company who has held up different platforms at once, like 2 different platforms with their handheld and their console. So that's like not new to them, but going to just one platform at a time with the Switch certainly helped their overall output for the generation. So I don't think they're going to fall into this setup where they're trying to juggle 2 systems at once for too long, but they're definitely not going to leave behind that install base. And even having something like this so close to the Switch 2 big event and reveal and games dropping shows me that they really don't mind kind of having these running alongside of each other, almost like 2 different pillars, but still kind of under that Switch branding umbrella. But still, it should be interesting to see what they have here for the current Switch. I think we'll see some pretty interesting stuff from third parties, what else they can squeeze out of this 8-year-old system now, and we'll probably see some remasters, maybe some remakes, probably a new Fire Emblem from Nintendo even, and maybe something for NSO. Although, unless it's some really cool and big collaboration, a game that they're getting on the N64 or something there, I think a lot of that will also be held for the Switch 2, and I'm crossing my fingers right now for a new Wavebird and GameCube, but you know what, we'll cross that next week when the time comes. For now, I guess we'll see what brand new stuff they have for us with the current Switch and how far they're willing to push maybe some of these releases out. Could we get towards the end of summer even for some of this stuff, and we have that cross-gen effect rolling along? But let me know what you guys think about this down below. Yes, a full general Nintendo Direct that's slated for tomorrow, and I will have some of my reactions after the Direct airs, like maybe an hour or so after, just kind of going over my initial thoughts for what's shown there. And of course, the following day on Friday, we'll have a full line-by-line summary breakdown on Newswave for the entire Direct. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.